6 phones, 4 quarters, 1 champion. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ultimate Phone League. I'm your host, Ben Kimball, and jumping right into the first quarter, this is the battery charging test. Let's do it. For each of the phones, we're using the proprietary charging brick that came with it so that we can get the full max speed charging abilities out of all of them. We have the Pixel, we have the iPhone, we have the Samsung, we have the Nothing, we have the OnePlus, and we have the Oppo, all going strong, charging at full capacity, and we already hit our 20-minute mark, and the OnePlus is pulling away, folks. This OnePlus is not to be trifled with. As you can see right here, it has the highest battery capacity, but it has that 120 watts fast charging, which is the fastest out of all of them. Oppo coming as a close second, but the OnePlus has something special. It has dual silicon carbon batteries, which makes it so it charges twice as fast, and we can see that right now. This thing is killing the competition. You can see that poor Nothing phone just getting left in the dust. Carl Pei, oh, somebody hold Carl Pei back. He is raging on the sideline. This is an absolute slaughter for the Nothing phone, but that's to be expected with such a budget phone. As we start to look at these thermal cameras, the phones were tested in different increments. So as you can see, 2 of the phones are not being charged while the other ones are. And as you can see, that iPhone is burning hot compared to the rest of those phones. Absolute heat coming out of this iPhone. And as we can see on the right as well, that OnePlus is absolutely burning hot as well. Just like the iPhone, those things are putting up major heat to get that major fast charging. And our Samsung staying surprisingly cool for how much power that thing is pushing out. And we see on there already that this OnePlus is already on its last legs. This thing is almost charged fully. Very impressive. Looks like that OnePlus turned off for a second and finished charging at 52 minutes, 0 to 100. One that is actually surprising to me, that is the Pixel 10 Pro XL is charging at an exceptional rate, even beating the Oppo, which is crazy because the Oppo has such a faster charging speed than that Pixel, but that Pixel is speeding up like nobody's business. I don't even know what's going to stop it. I'm very impressed. But our 2 in the last place being the Samsung Galaxy S26 Ultra and then the Nothing way in the back. Absolute insane speed. We'll see which one comes next. They're all going slower than anticipated compared to that OnePlus. None of them could be as bad as that Nothing phone. The Pixel and that Oppo finishing charging at the exact same time. Crazy tie. As we wait for the rest of them to charge fully up, that iPhone slowed down extremely as it got to that 80%. So we see that giant decrease. The Samsung finishing at 1 hour and 38 minutes. Still waiting on that Nothing and that iPhone. Maybe the iPhone will finish anytime soon. We'll see. It's taking for ages. Oh, and 1 hour and 49 minutes, the iPhone finally finishes, where our Nothing phone is still at the back of the pack. Carl Pei, I'm sorry, but this thing needs faster charging. It is a budget phone, so we'll give it that. And finally, right at 2 hours and 13 minutes, that Nothing phone finally finished charging. We'll be back in a jiffy. Let's get a word from our sponsors. When it comes to charging my phone, there's only one company I truly trust, and that is Anker. Day in and day out, for almost a decade now, I've used their stuff, and they make the best charging products on the market. They just dropped 2 new ones, and I've been using them constantly. The first one is the Anker charging block. It looks like a normal Apple charger, but instead of 5 watts, this thing is pushing 45 watts. That means your phone hits 0 to 50% battery in 20 minutes. It has a built-in screen showing your wattage, temperature, and battery percentage all in real time. The little interactive character on the display is also a fun little touch, and it even recognizes your phone when you plug it in, and it optimizes the charging specifically to protect your battery health over time. I like this one so much that I got 3 of them, and so if you come by my office, you'll see these things littered throughout my office. I love them. Then there's the Anker Prime. This is a 3-in-1 Qi 2 wireless charger that folds into a tiny cube. Pop it open and you're charging your iPhone, Apple Watch, and AirPods all at the exact same time. It even has built-in active cooling that keeps temperatures low to help protect your battery health in the long term. The best part is the whole thing folds back into a tiny cube. This thing is one of the most portable charging setups I've ever used. Huge thanks to Anker. These products are all linked in the description. Let's get back into the testing. Moving on to our full battery drain test, we made sure to put them at the exact same brightness and to remove all the background apps and to optimize them the best that we could so they were all equal. And we started off by just scrolling TikTok and then going into YouTube and watching drone footage for hours straight, and then going in to watch Mr. Beast, watch another thing for an hour straight. A little bit of video inception between all of our 6 phones right here. And as we can see, they're all staying at generally the same exact rate. They're all above 90 and they're all slowly decreasing, not too crazy. After that, we switched back to TikTok because the UFL knows that you guys are addicted to your phones and you watch social media all day, so we want to make sure to test that real good. Moving on, we did a heavy section right here, and we did them through Geekbench tests and Antutu tests to start to wear down that battery. And towards the end of that, we went to the volume shader, and we're sending you guys down to the court to see what is actually going on right now. This is Benjamin, the self-proclaimed phone daddy. As you can see, the OnePlus is completely overheating and cannot handle the load of the volume shader. We have 1 more minute left on the volume shader test, and this thing is absolutely cooking. It's gonna crash out. Things are not looking good for OnePlus here. And the OnePlus keeps exiting out of the browser because it's too hot and the phone is overheating. And it looks like OnePlus is getting a penalty for overheating, and we're having to dock some of their time because of that overheating issue. As we can see, that OnePlus is still at the highest percentage, but that Nothing phone and the Oppo are staying right there neck and neck with it. But we can see that Samsung slowly, gradually starting to pull away, which is kind of tragic. Now we're into the camera test, and we're just recording for straight 1 hour straight. Half of it is with our front-facing camera, and half is it with the rear-facing camera. And this one tends to beat down the Samsung just a little bit more. As you can see, it's already in the 60%, where we have our OnePlus staying in that 81%, but our Google Pixel following right behind that Samsung. Now we go on to watch one of the greatest movies ever, which is Ice Age, because it's free on Tubi. And now there is something I want to point out about this OnePlus and this Oppo. They have battery tech called silicon carbon batteries, which makes the silicon have those bigger battery cells in the same space as the other phones, and so that's why it has bigger battery percentage. And we're hitting about 9 hours of screen on time, which is absolutely insane for these phones, and we're all staying above 50%. That OnePlus still only 25% down, which is nuts. The UFL team knows that you guys just binge watch movies all day and watch social media, and so that's why we're testing these exact things. And we get the first one to the Samsung dropping below that 50% battery life, and this is just looking bad for the Samsung. That Pixel is right behind it as well. Not as optimized, that Pixel, where that OnePlus 15 is staying mega strong at well above 60%. This is impressive work on that OnePlus. Now we moved on to a semi-good movie, the Angry Birds movie, and this one is just going straight, just like the last one with Ice Age. We're getting insane decreasing on the Samsung, and that iPhone is starting to drop below that level as well, and that Nothing phone as well. Unfortunately for the competition, the OnePlus and the Oppo are still going strong, but that Samsung is just getting cooked. Our poor Samsung coach is just raging over the fact that his battery optimization is getting cooked in this test, and I don't even blame him. I feel bad. He is not performing at his best today. Now, while the rest of them are slowly dwindling, that OnePlus is still staying in the green, which is very impressive. But can I say, I'm not even surprised. This OnePlus is absolutely killer. All right, getting to that 11-hour mark, that Samsung is getting below 20% battery. Now, this thing is starting to get cooked just in time for us to put it on 3D Mark and drain the crap out of these things, because our game officials want to go to sleep and they need these phones to die. As we can see, that Samsung is dropping below 10%. Things are not looking good. That Pixel is right behind it, and then that iPhone. That OnePlus is just below 50%. That thing is an absolute battery beast. And getting to that 12-hour mark, the Samsung is just about on its last legs. Going to another section of straight recording on the screen, that Samsung finally taps out right around 12 hours. The Pixel on its last limbs as well, looking like it's going to be following that Samsung very soon. Now, folks, this is where things are about to get interesting. All these big dogs on the battery power are going to be fighting it out to the end. It's looking like, unfortunately, that OnePlus is going to be beating all of these. That Pixel just died, and the iPhone is starting to get on its last limbs. I'm actually very surprised at how well the Nothing is handling. Those lower end specs tend to be more efficient in some ways. I'm actually extremely surprised at how the Oppo is being beat so much by the OnePlus. The battery percentage is only slightly bigger, but that OnePlus is just way more efficient than that Oppo. And our iPhone is running on its last limbs. We're on YouTube again, and this thing is down to 5%. This thing is on the last bit of time. This thing will be dying anytime soon. And the Nothing is starting to get to that point as well. And finally, the iPhone calls it quits at right around 13 hours. But that Nothing phone clocks out right after the iPhone, right around 13 hours. And then we have that Oppo and the OnePlus staying strong for the last bit of this test. But this Oppo simply cannot keep up. It went into the emergency mode, and it just had to like barely hang on there. And as you can see, down to 1%, this thing ends up dying in the middle of Subway Surfers, whereas our OnePlus is still going strong. Man, this battery was the UFL official's nightmare. Are you kidding me? This thing simply would not die. We even put it on the volume shader to try to drain the crap out of this battery, but it just kept going. This thing would not die, but it did keep overheating, so we did have to dock some of the points because of that. It had major overheating issues. This thing probably overheated 4 times in our testing, which was kind of embarrassing, but I guess it makes sense when you have such a powerful phone. But I guess it makes up for it in the fact that this battery can last extremely long, and this thing simply will not die. 14 hours into our test, we're throwing out all we got with the volume shader test, trying to get this thing to die, and it simply will not go. And the OnePlus holding on to the very end, clocking out right at 14 hours and 19 minutes. Absolutely insane on the OnePlus. And this concludes our first quarter of the UFL Phone League. This is the battery section. It finally died. 14 hours and 19 minutes.
And our OnePlus getting the highest score of the match, with our Oppo coming in second place. Leaving these to be our scores after the battery quarter. With the first quarter down, we now move on to the second quarter, the camera test.
All right, moving right away into the second quarter. This is the ultimate camera battle. As you can see, we have some heavy hitters in the camera area. Lots of 200 megapixel cameras. And we're starting out first with a wide angle camera test. So we're going through all the different phones in the exact same situation, trying to keep all the variables exactly the same and using it right in the stock camera app and looking at which one can take the very best. And these are the results that we get. All of them looking decent. That Nothing phone looking a little bit trash. Here is the scoring from the judges. Putting the Oppo in first place on this one. Folks, this Oppo Find X9 Ultra is not to be trifled with. This thing is equipped with a 50 megapixel ultra wide camera that looks spectacular. Let's take a look at the sample that it got us. This is the actual picture, looking very nice. A little bit of distortion on the sides, but the colors look really good, and the person in frame looks good as well. Okay, moving on to our next test. This is the main camera test. So this is the main lens on all of them. This should be the best of the best on each of these phones. We'll see which one looks the very best in the very end, but we're going through all the phones, cycling through them just to see exact same scenario, just to see which one will look the very best. Okay, here are the results that we got. Okay, honestly, they're all looking very good. Okay, looks like we got some oversaturation on this OnePlus. Let's see what the judges give us. Oh my goodness. Okay, that Samsung S26 Ultra is ranked #1 on this primary test, and that is no surprise because this thing is no slouch either. This has a 200 megapixel main lens, and this thing absolutely cooks. Absolutely killer camera right here, and right there, this is that sample, a little bit more blown up so we can see a little bit better. Spectacular picture. All right, now we're going into our zoomed lens right here. So we have all of them. We're testing the middle zoom and the full optical zoom on all of them, and this is the results that we get on all of them. So this is kind of the middle one, so either the 5 times or the 4 times for all of the phones. Some of them are optical, some of them aren't. Our judges rank Samsung yet again #1 on this one, and Samsung is no slouch like we talked about earlier. Then we have our full optical zoom, and this one is a big differentiator. As we can see, that Nothing is struggling a little bit right here, but let's take a look at which one the judges pick, and they picked the Google Pixel 10 Pro XL as the first place. One thing about this Pixel is this thing is built for picture taking. It has the tensor chip itself is basically built to run AI models that'll help picture taking. So as you can see, very nice telephoto lens with that 48 megapixel telephoto. Very spectacular camera right here. And here's our result with the closer up. Okay, now we have the same situation. We have our wide, which gives it to the Oppo. Then we have our main, which gives it to the iPhone actually on this one. This iPhone 17 Pro Max is also no slouch. We don't want to be skipping out on the iPhone. This is also a spectacular phone. That main camera is that 48 megapixel fusion camera from Apple. Great camera, obviously made by Sony like most of the rest of them, but very good picture on this one. Okay, moving on to our more zoomed in one, giving another one to the Samsung, and then going in even more cropped. And this one goes to the Oppo, and then going in even more at the full optical, going to the Pixel 10 Pro XL yet again on that telephoto lens. That telephoto is killer on that Pixel, not to be slept on. Okay, next round we're going to is the night camera round. So this is the night pictures. As you can see right here, we have our UFL official judges going through the actual taking of pictures in the dark setting to see which one looks the very best. going through all of the phones. I'm super excited to see which one will look the best. Okay, starting first with our ultra wide. Let's see which one does the best. And the judges ranked the Galaxy S26 Ultra as the best one on the ultra wide. Going to this main one in this dark setting. Let's take a look. Oh, that Oppo Find X9 Ultra getting very first place on this one. Now going to our more zoomed lens, and the iPhone actually doing spectacularly well on this one. And to our even more zoom lens, the iPhone yet again excelling in this night mode. As you can see, it's the most clear of all of these ones. And then going into our full zoom, we have another win for the iPhone. This one just looks spectacular. It just looks so lit up even in the dark. Now we have our selfie camera test. Okay, this is a lit selfie camera, and we'll see which one performs. And we have the winner again, which is the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Absolutely killing right here on the iPhone. No surprise, these iPhone cameras are not to be messed around with. Okay, we have a night selfie camera shot, and it looks like we had two little bit of a cheaters here. We had the Pixel and the Nothing, which turned on the screen brighter so we could get a brighter shot, and so that's why it did look brighter on that one. The iPhone looking kind of scary on this one, giving the win to the Pixel. Then we moved outside to do some better macro photography, and we're taking a picture of this nice little flower. Unfortunately, we did lose one of the shots for the Nothing. Had to retake them, and unfortunately the flower is dead by then, sadly. But looking at all the pictures, the S26 Ultra was looking the most sharp according to the judges, with the iPhone coming in second and the Pixel coming in third, with that Oppo and OnePlus coming in fourth and fifth. Now we're moving on to a portrait test right here on one of our friends here, Jacob, and that Nothing phone just not looking so awesome. Putting out our number one again at the Samsung Galaxy S26 Ultra. No surprise there. Now we have another selfie test. This is an outdoor lighting, and this one goes to the S26 Ultra. Surprising on that selfie camera, because that selfie camera can be questionable sometimes. All right, now we're going into a full 100 times zoom test, and this is on a little sign across the street. I want to figure out if I want to rent there or not, and I need to be able to read this sign. So which one did the best job? Giving our first place to that Oppo Find X9 Ultra, and second place to that Apple. The Apple may not be as zoomed in, but it is very clear, and you can read it just as well as that Oppo. And our OnePlus, unfortunately, coming in very last. This OnePlus is performing awfully bad on this camera test. It may have good camera specs, but whatever it is, their camera magic is not cooking. I'm sorry. Now we go to another full-time zoom on our friend here, Jacob, as well. This is on his face. We want to see which one will make his face look the most realistic. Here's our results. Okay, not bad. That Nothing may have that 140 times zoom. Is it actually better, or is it just for show? Looks like our judges said that the S26 Ultra looked the very best, with the Pixel coming in second, the Oppo coming in third. And not gonna lie, that iPhone is pretty good as well. All right, moving on to our macro test. So this is some salt that we had, some table salt, and they used it to zoom in all the way. So they do look like boulders on some of them, and some of them do kind of look like salt. But that iPhone and that Samsung looking the very most zoomed out of all of them, and giving the win to the S26 Ultra, having the most details on that salt. All right, now we have a front camera test. We're trying to see the stabilization and just the overall quality of the front-facing camera. We'll see how this one turns out. I'm super curious. All right, and looking at these results, that iPhone obviously is looking the very best on that front-facing camera. Very nice and smooth. Now going on to another video test, we're recording these flowers outside, trying to get some nice, just smooth cinematic shots, and going through all the phones on this one. This is a nice, beautiful shot. That Nothing phone looking a little saturated compared to the rest of them, but overall, it is a very beautiful shot, and our judges give it to the Oppo Find X9 Ultra first place. Everybody, there is one thing that we have to acknowledge. This Nothing 4A Pro may be getting destroyed by all these other phones, but this phone costs half of the price of the rest of these. So the fact that it's even in this match shows that it's punching up way above its weight class. It may be getting destroyed in a lot of these things, but it's keeping up in some of them, which is impressive when it's not a flagship. All right, going on to this shake test, I have a feeling that this iPhone is gonna be looking the smoothest. Wow, that Pixel's not looking bad, but still can't compete against that iPhone. Now we have a zoom in test. We want to check the stability between the cameras and the switching, and they all look pretty decent. Some kind of jumped around a little bit, and the judges giving that win to the iPhone. No surprise there. Now this is a walking test to see how the stabilization looks. They're honestly pretty all similar, but looks like that iPhone is slightly the most smooth according to the judges. Now we have another one of those zoom tests, but this one is instead on some ducks to see how that zooming ability is. One thing I do notice is that that iPhone is extremely zoomed when it switches between cameras, where a lot of these can get pretty jumpy. So it's a very good job on the iPhone switching very smoothly between those cameras. And zooming back out, let's see which one the judges deemed the very best. Unfortunately, we did lose this footage on the Nothing. It was a complication in transporting the footage, but our iPhone having the smoothest zoom, and that is no surprise there. Next test is one that's a little bit odd, but this is a slow-mo test. This is not a huge feature that a lot of companies focus on anymore, but this is something that is important to the UFL League. Let's take a look at our footage, and that Oppo is looking very crispy and nice. Job on all of these ones. We have some bees in the background. It's quite beautiful footage, frankly. Unfortunately, that Nothing and that Samsung kind of look extremely bad. And the win goes to the Oppo. Okay, now we go into the night video section. So as you can see, our judges are doing that test right again through the night video testing, running through all of the phones to see which one will take the best night video. I'm super curious to see how that looks. And here we go. Okay, zooming through. Looks like our wide angle is having a hard time with this lighting. And then we jump to the main. Okay, looks like the judges deemed the iPhone as the best one on there. Now our front camera test. Taking a look right here, looks like that Pixel is cheating a little bit, putting some light onto the face using the screen. And so we're gonna have to give that win to the Pixel 10 Pro XL, giving us our final scores of the quarter, with the iPhone 17 Pro Max performing the very best in the camera test, with the S26 Ultra and the Pixel right on its heels, where our OnePlus and our Nothing phone performed very bad in this camera testing. Putting that Oppo Find X9 Ultra at the very top of our leaderboard, with that OnePlus right below it, and then the Pixel right on its heels. Surprising turnout so far, but because of that OnePlus's exceptional performance in the battery, it just has that mega lead with 25 points in quarter one, despite its major failure in quarter two. All right. And this halftime show is brought to you by the Custom Adventurous YouTube channel.
Welcome to the UFL halftime show. Please enjoy the show.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Thank you for watching the UFL halftime show.
All right, welcome back from the halftime show. Now we're gonna be going through the wildcard section. This is where we're gonna be testing a bunch of random things that are important to the phones. And as we can see, the aerial view of the phones. And now this is the microphone quality. Let's take a listen right here. Okay, we're testing the microphone quality of the phones. I'm using the front-facing camera, and we're testing the microphone quality of the phones. I'm using the front-facing camera, and Okay, we're testing the microphone quality of the phones. I'm using the front-facing camera, and Okay, we're testing the microphone quality of the phones. I'm using the front-facing camera, and Okay, we're testing the microphone quality of the phones. I'm using the front-facing camera, and Okay, we're testing the microphone quality of the phones. I'm using the front-facing camera, and All right, and those were all of the samples from the microphone quality. It looks like the judges ranked the iPhone as number 1, the Oppo at number 2, and the Pixel at number 6. Now we're moving on to our next section. This is more of an ASMR section. This is where the judges will be judging the audio. So this is like how you interact with the phone. This is the vibrations, this is the little sounds, all these little things that make the phones feel premium when you're using them. So going through this section, we'll start with the Oppo. And then we go to the Pixel. And then we go to our Samsung. Then we go to that Nothing phone. And then we go to the iPhone. And then finishing with that OnePlus phone. Now on this one, the judges ranked the iPhone 17 Pro Max as the highest one, with the Nothing Phone 4a Pro coming in second with those cool glyph structures. Then our OnePlus coming in very last at rank 6. All right, moving on. Now we have a section where we're testing how well the phones can pick up Wi-Fi. So this is a little bit of an odd test, but we're going through the speed test on the app and going through this test several times to see if we can get consistent speed every single time and see if there's one that consistently scores higher or lower depending on what it is. And as we can see right there, that Nothing Phone performs significantly less. I guess it has a lower performing connectivity chip, and that's the reason why it's getting such lower scores. Is that is something you need to take into account when buying a budget phone. As we can see, this Oppo is consistently scoring very high as well, and that OnePlus as well. So we're averaging out the scores, and this is the scores you're seeing on the scoreboard right here. Is going up incrementally, but we're going through this Wi-Fi section to see which one can actually have the highest Wi-Fi. Basically, the trends that I'm seeing so far is that most of the flagships are kind of similar. Looks like that iPhone is performing a little bit less than the rest of them. Then that Nothing Phone is just performing super low every single time, which is actually very interesting results. I did not anticipate to be getting lower Wi-Fi speeds on a different phone, but that is why we test these things to see if they're actually different, see if these things are to be taken into account when buying phones. So this is something to be taken into account when you're buying a Nothing Phone. And these are our end results. These are the scores that we got on all of them. Now we're moving outside to see which screen is the brightest in the bright sun. Okay, all of these are full brightness, and it looks like to me the Samsung, the iPhone, and the Oppo are definitely the brightest. The OnePlus and the Nothing are less bright, and the Pixel's less bright. But we are in direct sunlight right now, and this is what it looks like. Moving on to our next test, we're gonna see which phones are the very loudest with their speakers. Let's get into the test. All right, and after our wildcard quarter, our Oppo Find X9 Ultra performed the very best, with that Pixel coming in right behind it, and that Nothing 4a Pro coming at very last. That is to be expected. And this updating our leaderboard, putting the Oppo Find X9 Ultra at the very top, yet again, with the OnePlus right behind it.
Welcome to the fourth quarter.
Moving on to the fourth quarter. This is arguably one of the most important quarters. If you can win the performance quarter, you can win the entire game. Now, 3 of these phones have the exact same chip. The S26 Ultra claims to have for Galaxy tuning, so to make it even quicker, but we'll see in this performance test if that actually makes a difference. One phone that is not to be slept on right now is the iPhone 17 Pro Max. This has a exceptional chip with the Apple Silicon, but we'll see if it can keep up to that Snapdragon power. All right, starting off first with a Geekbench test. We'll be conducting 6 Geekbench tests to see which ones perform the very highest in this section, and they'll be ranking them after that. And it looks like our iPhone does perform the highest in single core, but that Snapdragon power is performing higher in that multi-core score. Going again through the tests, as we saw before, that Nothing Phone and that Pixel are being left behind, which is very surprising on that Pixel being a flagship just like the rest of them, but not performing quite like a flagship. Going through that test once again, as we can see, we're kind of getting the exact same results between all of the phones. So we're going to change things up real quick, and now we're going to throw them on a bag of ice. But all of them are on a bag of ice to see if we can get different performance depending on how cold this phone is. And we go through this exact same test, and we see a significant jump in all of the scores. The iPhone breaking that 10,000 multi-core score. Going into another test, we're going to see just how much this ice can affect all of these phones. I'm super curious to see how this will look in the end. That iPhone going higher and higher every single time. Looks like those other phones as well are increasing in that speed on this Geekbench test. Now, this isn't a perfect test every time, folks, and the way we did calculate the points was we added up the multi-core and the single core score and averaged out the 2 of them. So it's not a perfect comparison, but we are consistently getting slightly higher results on these Snapdragons with that higher multi-core score. Not to be forgotten that iPhone has that higher single core score just slightly, but it is lacking a little bit more in that multi-core score. Moving on, we're going into the Antutu test. Unfortunately, this is where things get a little bit dicey between iOS and Android. As you know, the iOS Antutu is completely different than the Antutu on the Android phones. So the Android phones are all the same, but that one on iOS is just hard to judge. And so we're just gonna have to do the best we can, but we'll see the performance in the end. As you saw, I just burned through that test like nobody's business, but you'll see that it has a 2 million score where the other ones have like 4 million. And you're like, there's gotta be something wrong here because they're almost the same performance in the Geekbench. One thing I do not want to steer away from is that Pixel. That Pixel is absolutely just not even performing at all. This thing is just decided not to even do the test and it just quit. Putting it in last place because this thing just didn't even work. See, at least the Nothing phone finished the test, whereas this Pixel, it couldn't even finish the test. Kind of sad on that one. And so here are the updated scores so far. Moving on to our gaming test, we're doing Subway Surfers and also Free Fire on all the phones just to kind of compare how the game ability is. This is not a perfect test. It's not hours and hours of gaming. We had to condense it down because there were just so many phones. But overall, they all performed decently well. In fact, they all had good game ability. They didn't overheat too much, except for that OnePlus did overheat a good amount, and that's to be expected with such an overclocked device. But in the end, we did have the ranking of the OnePlus 15 as the highest ranked game ability. That's just because that high refresh rate and that insane Snapdragon just cooking through it with close seconds of the Snapdragon and the Oppo and the iPhone coming in fourth. Now moving into our very last section of the entire video, this is the speed test. This is arguably one of my favorite sections in the entire video because this is when you actually see not just the benchmarks, but now you see actually how fast this thing's moving through animations, apps, and all of the above. So we're starting in the test right away. And as you can see, we started at the exact same time and we're just clicking through these apps, speeding through them. One thing we'll notice with this is we're doing 3 tests just to average out them all. And just in case there are errors, we want to try to keep it as realistic as possible. We're going through a ton of different apps. We have gaming apps, we have social media apps, we have all sorts of things, but we're cleaning through the apps as well. One thing I want to point out is there is 2 laps in this test. And if you don't go through the second lap extremely fast, you're going to get cooked on your scores. And as we can see, that Nothing phone is just getting cooked because it could not keep those poor apps open. We had to speed through the last round because this thing was taking forever. And the Nothing finally finishes off with 4 minutes, but our fastest phone being the OnePlus, getting 1 minute and 42 seconds. So like I said earlier, there is 2 more of these tests and we'll see which one performs the very best. One thing we should expect is faster testing on each of them. They should improve gradually over time because the system should be adapting a little bit more to this clicking strategy that we're doing. So we'll see which one does the very best. And getting to the very end of this test, it looks like, wow, that OnePlus scoring 1 minute and 17 seconds with the Oppo right on its heels at 1 minute and 20 seconds. Now, I do want to account for user error. Possibly some of this could be the clicking, but that's why we're doing as many tests as we can to make it as realistic as possible. And that Nothing phone actually improving by quite a bit. And that also, I want to point the attention over to that Pixel, also a great improvement, but that OnePlus coming in very first. Now for our very last test, and this one is the one for all of the gold. We'll see which phone performs the very best. And this speed test is so we can see every last minute of it. Okay, ready, set, go. All right, going through TikTok, some phones loading it quicker, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Those social media apps are a lot lighter. Also, these AI apps are quite light to load through depending on which one you're doing. Then we have Google, Sheen, and then we have CapCut, Tubi, going through all of these. Unfortunately, this Nothing phone is getting left behind, where the other ones are speeding through the rest of them. Now, this is where our Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 is really excelling, is on these game loading speeds. They are cooking through this, where some of the other ones are getting a little bit delayed, like that Tensor chip. But speeding through that last round and getting to Call of Duty on the last phones, this will start the second lap, which will be the lap of fates right here. Depending on who gets the fastest score on this lap of fates, could possibly win the game. As of right now, I'm pretty sure we have our Oppo and our OnePlus being neck and neck to win the game. Whoever gets the highest score on this one could potentially win the entire phone battle. Now, unfortunately, some of these other phones, like the iPhone and the Pixel, are just a little bit too far behind to come back in time. But going through this last lap, wow, the Oppo finishing very first at 1 minute and 19 seconds with that OnePlus right behind it at 1 minute and 20 seconds. Wow. Looks like there was a slight error on the iPhone right there, but it looks like that Tensor chip and the Nothing phone are just going to the best they can. We'll speed through them to get to the very end of the video, leaving us with our final score of the very first United Phone League video. Going over quarter 4 performance, our highest phone being the OnePlus 15 with the S26 Ultra matching it, with our Oppo Find X9 Ultra coming in third, the iPhone coming in fourth place, then we have the Pixel, and then the nothing phone, leaving us to the final leaderboard of the entire match. And the winner of the first ever Ultimate Phone League video is the OnePlus 15. Coming in second place is that Oppo Find X9 Ultra, and coming in third is that Galaxy S26 Ultra, with the iPhone not even making it to the podium. Now, some of these results can be negligible depending on where you see it, but we see a clear gap between those, the Oppo and that OnePlus, and that Samsung and that iPhone. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching this video. Please leave it in the comments which phones you'd like me to compare next, and we'll see you next time.